Welcome to Learning for Love, Lessons for Life. If you are in what some people call the sandwich generation, where you find yourself in caring roles, whether it's for parents, children, or in your professional life, then this show is for you. I really wanted to figure out how we could find those messages, those take-home messages for us to figure out how do we get through this situation when you reach that point of overwhelm in life and feel like you have no time for yourself. So I've created this show asking people who have been there already in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and almost 90s to bring their messages of their lived experience to us for us to learn from and grow from together. So I'm looking forward to you joining me for this show to learn about those lessons that are easier for us to learn when we're talking about other people, but for us to really take home and remember how important it is to take care of ourselves and be the best we can be to take care of the ones we love the most. I'm really excited about today's episode. We are focusing on the topic of it never being too late. It's never too late to create new opportunities in retirement or at any stage in your life. And today I'm really excited to have two wonderful ladies on the show, Kathy Smith, who we'll get to in a little while, and I'm going to start off with Helen Mailer, who I must tell you is my mother. So I couldn't be more pleased and proud to have her as my first guest. So welcome, Helen/Mom, to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm very honored to be the first one.
Well, good. I wanted to have you on the show today because, well, you're my mom, and I find you inspirational for many reasons. You have always shown unconditional love. You have a unique ability to make people feel special and see their strengths even when they're far from seeing their own. You're incredibly creative. Your keen sense for anything musical amazes me. You used to do calligraphy as a side gig. You learned just a few short years ago how you had a creative flair for painting. You can sew with ease for your loved ones. You have a long-standing interest and skills for writing and anything literary, and you're actually writing your little topics for me as I ask you questions about your life and what's important to you. You've been sharing stories with me, which I really have genuinely appreciated and treasure. So that's from my point of view, but I'm hoping that maybe for the others watching, you could just share a little bit about who you are.
Oh my goodness, I don't know where to start now. Well, first and foremost, I can just say that I have been a very fiercely proud mother for many years, and I think the feeling continues to burn in me. And I made the choice to raise my two little ones many years ago, and I was able to move my 5-month-old baby and my 5-year-old son and decide to make an adventure of life in a happier way. So since then, as you know, Lisa, we have been together as a tight threesome, and we had adventures, many of them. And I've tried to always have something to do. My personality kind of made me have something to do. I had to create it. I had to create. I remember just being with you kids, we would think of something to do. Well, let's start at the beginning. Where can we go?
Yeah, we had so many different adventures, and I remember always, I think what's most important, and it's not something you would necessarily share as a lesson for yourself, but on the other hand, maybe you would, but I think one of the things you've taught me is how it's so important to love each other and support each other really no matter what. That unconditional love, which has stuck with me in my own family and, raising our own children, that really, I think that's number one, and that's what's helped me. It's not a perfect road, it's not like it's been all roses along the way, but I think that has been the underlying message for me. And I know that I just mentioned to you recently how you've been an inspiration even to my friends who still continue to reach out and and
Oh,
ask about you.
well, I think I spoke from my heart, and I think yes, I loved you desperately, and you were the only anchors I had, aside from my Almighty God, who has guided all my steps and helped me do this. I can remember one night sitting on the toy box in the room that you and Chris shared, and just sitting on the lid, watching both of you sleep and praying to God, saying, I really need a little more attention in my scene here because I'm not sure I can handle this myself.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done. This is not a Bible thumper thing. It's just, I just couldn't have done it without. And feeling it every day, and knowing that I had hugs and kisses in the morning when I'd say goodbye. And I worked several jobs to stay busy. But even though I should have perhaps been spending a little more time at home with my little ones, if we wanted if we wanted a holiday and things to do, I had to work a second job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because I think I came from a very sheltered and I was desperately loved at home and a very Christian home, that yes, we were carefully raised. So once I was on my own with my two kids, I'll tell you, I did some quick learning. And it's not the way I was raised, but the foundation was there.
Right.
So I don't know if I'm wandering from the question, but
No, I think that's great. I think
I
that's
just
great. And
went on.
no, that I value what you're saying, because I think it is. It's the groundwork that you've learned from, and then you create from those lessons that you've learned how that best suits you and how it fits your life going forward. And we continue to evolve and figure out how it fits for us as children too. So you're also, I mean, you're a caregiver in the sense that you're still a mom. I still come to you and want to talk and vent about things and figure things out. And you're a good listening ear for me, which I really appreciate. You also are married. You're remarried now. Plus, there's other family and friends that I know that you care for in more ways than one. What would you say helps you going? Because this show is really about finding that resilience and getting through some of those tough times when you feel completely overwhelmed and when there's so many other people to care for. What do you do to make sure that you also care for yourself?
With COVID, things are so different. And this has been a very different time for me because even though I've become kind of, I wouldn't say a recluse, but I don't need a lot of the small talk that we have with as friends. But I find that what I do is I reach out to a friend every day on the phone and just
Ah,
touch base. And sometimes with my artwork, I make little note cards, and it's always nice to get a little note in the mail, whether it's a birthday or a hi, how are you, or where the hell have you been? And then you just think, I just, I like to do that because I also know the surprise when they get it in the mail.
yeah,
I have a very close sister who I worship, and we grew up together tightly. And as you know, Lisa, my sister and I also knew there weren't just roses, but we've learned to be together. We have little trips that we take together. And I find that I'm very involved in our church and I volunteer in the better times. And as long as I have something to do, somewhere to put my head other than just on, oh, poor Helen, or it's a
yes,
bad day, or I just need to feel better about myself. It's nice
yeah,
to come home after and think, well, good, I didn't waste my day. I'm glad I was with so and so, and it was great to see them, or I
yeah,
got this much done in my volunteering job. I think partly is just I need to feel like I matter.
absolutely. And
And
that, I don't think
sometimes,
that changes at any age, does it?
no, it almost gets more so once you retire because you're not answering to the people that you normally worked with, and you don't have to excel in a certain area.
Yeah,
It's very hard to look at yourself, and after you've swept the floor and dusted, it's like, yeah, that's a good job, but that's not enough. I need more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So you're mentioning about really how it matters after retirement, and I know that Kathy's going to touch on the retirement piece as well. So what how did retirement look for you? Was it what you expected?
oh no. I went, oh no, I went into almost a deep depression and I suffered terribly because I'd been so busy and my job was of great intensity and perfection, and it was that every day was different. I loved the intensity, and all of a sudden it was this endless weekend,
Right.
and I had terrible difficulty finding things to do that I thought mattered. I both my jobs were always about caring about other people. I was a dental assistant, and so of course, chairside assistance was, you're always with your eye on the patient. You care about how the instruments are sterilized, and then even when you have being a wife in the middle of that, I always, well, I'm very much in love, so I like to be very careful, and I do care.
You're very nurturing.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure that's always good, but
But
my
it's
sister says
true.
I
That's part of
tend
your
to
nature,
clutter over the
right?
as my sister says, I tend to have to micromanage things, so I don't know if that's good or not.
So then I have one more question. I think
Yeah.
before we end for now, but I want you to join Kathy and myself later on.
Oh, yes.
So what helped you through, so that time, I guess, even that transition from working to now, and I feel like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you're in a better place now than when you first retired. What helped you get through that? What's kind of what's kept you going? What's built your resiliency?
Well, I I did have a bad time when I first retired, and it wasn't easy for me. I can only say I talked to God a lot. I read a lot of books. I'm not sure I remembered them all, but I needed to put my head somewhere else.
Right.
And I would sew, and I made things for your little ones.
Yeah.
And I just, whatever little bee got in my bonnet, I could do things. But there were times when I just sort of sat. And it sounds awful, but it took a long time for me to, I even sought professional help to help me through because it was difficult for me.
Yeah.
And just having to slow down was hardest thing. I mean, I've never been a slow down person. And
Yeah.
even as a little girl, I was in trouble for Helen is clever, but she won't settle down.
You
Like,
got to keep going, and it sounds like just being able to be sometimes, just
yes,
to be and have some mental quiet space, and then also it sounds like you used a lot of your creative pursuits too, and your faith, which
thank you.
is
That's a
always there.
really nice way of summarizing it. Yeah, I think so.
Well, thank you, Mom.
Thank you for having me on. It was
Thank
nice to
you, and
meet
I
you.
hope you stick around
Yes,
for
I
after.
am. I'm not leaving at all.
Welcome, Kathy Smith, to the show. I'm really excited that she's here today. I wanted you to join us, Kathy, because I've learned a lot about the incredible work you've done in our community, the advocate that you are for the older population through the online and community-based programs, activities, and events that you're a part of, and how you promote creativity in the second half of life. I'm hoping that maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what led you to this work that you do.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Thank you very much for inviting me to participate.
Oh, I'm
And
really pleased.
and so, well, I think that in introducing myself and what led me to do what I'm doing now, I think I would define myself right now, still interestingly enough, as a fiercely proud mom, like our other guest Helen has said or will say. I have an adult son who's part of the lost Gen X generation, which is kind of interesting to maintain and to develop and grow that relationship. At present, I'm coordinator of the London and Area Creative Age Network, which you mentioned, and I'm a downtown dweller. I live in beautiful downtown London, Ontario, and that's a very big part of my network and my support group and my everyday life, as we call ourselves river dwellers, because we live right around the forks of the Thames. So those are the things that are kind of interesting, or a way that I would define myself, and some of the things that I'm doing right now. And you mentioned, or you asked, how did I get into this, the situation that I am now? And working with older adults or adults who are in the second half of life. At the age of 58, I had an opportunity to start over as a relationship was ending. And I looked around in the community and different businesses and nonprofit organizations, and there didn't seem to be a lot of opportunities, or at least things that I was interested in. And so I thought, well, here's another opportunity. If what doesn't exist, if it doesn't exist, maybe these are things that I can start doing myself. And so that led me to look at options, look at new things that I could get involved with and meet new people in order to start my life over as in the second half of life.
Right, right. That's wonderful. And the fact that you created your own opportunities, I find in itself so inspirational. You know, you didn't leave it to other people. You kind of, it sounds like you were looking for something, and because of your own personal pursuit, you were able to create something and bring it to our community. Am I kind of on track?
Well, yes. I mean, that's working with other people. People expect, or somehow they have an expectation that what they're looking for or what they want to do already exists.
Right.
And that's not always the case.
Yeah.
So we have a whole other new generation of seniors coming into retirement and moving through retirement. And the existing services in the community and the existing programs were not really set up for baby boomers, for people who were part of that particular generation. And so people like myself went to a senior center or went to some kind of programming and said, I don't fit here. I don't belong here, because my whole cultural experience has been so different, being part of the baby boomer generation and the youth revolution and the sexual revolution and all of the things that defined our generation, our culture. And now we're getting older, or older. And so what we created new before, we have to recreate new again.
Right. Yeah, you're right. It sounds, and everybody's heard of the baby boomer generation and how, you know, there's a complete different perspective, and kind of a freeness to that. And I think you're right. It probably almost felt like visiting senior centers and the things that were already established, you just didn't fit in.
Well, you know, the thing that really struck me the most was that my generation was probably the first generation, or maybe just a little bit before me, where women actually had a career all of their lives.
Yeah.
So when we got to be 60 or 65, we had already had a lot of life experience, a lot of business experience. We had developed a whole lot of skills. we still were involved in community work and child rearing and everything, but our experience was much different. So, but people, especially volunteer coordinators, were still treating us like, maybe we didn't know, or we didn't have these skills, or we didn't have the background, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I would say, I've done that for 30 years. And that was quite a revelation, because how those organizations and those volunteer coordinators worked with me would be completely different than somebody who was 15 years older.
Yeah, absolutely. You bring up some excellent points, and I'm really hoping that maybe we can talk a little bit more about that when I bring you back with my mom, Helen Mailer, for the next little part of our show. And I really appreciate you both joining me today. And Kathy, thank you so much for taking the time to explain a little bit about your journey so far. And I just find your story and the way that you see things and work towards bettering our community, it's so uplifting and inspirational. So thank you. Welcome back to our show. Today we have Kathy Smith and Helen Mailer joining us to talk about how it's never too late. It doesn't matter if you're retired or you're not retired, that there's always new pursuits. We should always be creative and look for opportunities to grow. And so, Kathy, I'd love to start back by asking you, what do you know about the benefits? Why is it important for us to stay creative, to stay part of our community, and to do things like what we've talked about today?
Well, the Creative Age Network did a lot of research in the community, and we found that people were looking for meaning and purpose, and some wanted volunteer jobs, and others needed to keep working. So the overriding sense was that people still wanted to be engaged, and that they wanted to feel like they were involved in their communities in some way. And so creativity can apply to things that you're doing, like sewing and painting, but it can also be creative work or a creative approach to problem solving at work, or any other kind of inspirational activity that engages us in an intellectual and purposeful, meaningful way. So I think that was the most important thing about focusing on creativity, was looking for new things, looking for new ways, and helping people feel needed and important even after they retired, or they had changed their lives, or moved to another neighborhood. And creativity can be a central piece of that process.
I think that's so important. And the fact that you're talking about creativity being that's such a broad word. And I think people think of arts and crafts when they think of creativity, where for me, I can tell you I am not an artsy, crafty type of person, but I still consider myself to be creative. And I'm hoping that everybody can see that about themselves, that we're all creative, just in so many different types of ways, whether it's through arts and crafts or communication or whatever I recently heard the term, whatever your special sauce is, whatever your gifts are, we need to tap into those. And I think sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit on knowing what that is.
Yes. And sometimes people don't know where to look, or they don't know what their options are. So if they come into a network of other people who have a similar framework, or they're like-minded, and they are focused on creativity, we can introduce people to each other, and we can introduce people to volunteer opportunities, or to work opportunities, or doing things at home, or setting up an art studio. And so creativity becomes a creative community of
Yeah.
like-minded people.
Oh, I love it. I love it because I think you're right. It's the connectedness and feeling like there's a community and other people who get it and are interested in similar things. Mom/Helen, do you have thoughts on this, or how can it sound? I can see you nodding. I can
Yeah,
tell you're
yeah.
relating.
I sorry to interrupt you, Lise.
No?
I find, Kathy, that that's probably because I tend, and once you stay home a little bit and you don't have a lot to do, and especially I go back to this COVID thing, my volunteer positions have been stopped, of course, and most other things that I would do are stopped. So it's in this vacuum that I'm having trouble. But I agree with you. If you find somewhere to go, and I think that's why I like my art classes because of the camaraderie. Sometimes I feel like I need a little different class, but I'd rather go back to the one where there's other people taking the class and you can share, and you just still need to be with other human beings of like-mindedness and not forget what your gifts are. I think sometimes the way you worked, whatever you did for your job, you have to find what you like. It's so important. I think it's about thinking about yourself. All of
Yeah.
us, we've been thinking about others, and now it's hard to turn it in and look at myself.
Yeah. And I think, though, Mom, what you're saying, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but
No,
you
no.
mentioning that, I think it's important for people to realize that much earlier in life, that it's not
It
selfish
is.
to take care of our own needs and have that, carve out that time for ourselves in order to be the best that we can be for our loved ones.
I agree. And
Yeah.
it's not so much about being too busy.
Yeah.
And if you are too busy, you need to take time for you that makes you happy, not just like, oh, good, I can have a cup of tea and put my feet up now.
Yeah.
No, you need to think deeper, like, okay, what am I going to do?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm going to stop us there.
Sorry.
Thank you to both of you. The messages I got from this were how important it is for like-minded individuals to have a place, physically and emotionally, where you feel like you can relate to other people, and to make sure that you carve out meaningful and purposeful time for yourself, whatever that means to you, not just about getting your nails done and, going shopping. It's deeper than that. So thank you both so much, Kathy Smith
Thank
and
you.
Helen Mailer, for joining me for today. And these are just extra lessons for me and people like me out there to learn going forward how we can best take care of ourselves. So thank you so much. I've
Thank you
really
for
enjoyed
having me
today.
on, Lisa. Thank you. And thank you, Kathy. I enjoyed chatting and listening to you.
A like-minded person, Helen.
That's cool. Thank you. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you so much.
I love you.
I love you too. Well, thanks for joining me today on this episode. I hope this has helped you learn how it's never too late and to find within yourself what really makes sense for you, whatever that looks like, whatever your creativity is, and tapping into the community and knowing that you're connected in whatever way works for you. Thanks so much.